Rob.
Thank you. First of all, I'm going to apologize early on. My work computer, I mentioned earlier we're a nonprofit, so we're working on nonprofit computers. Um, had a little burp this morning, so I'm on a borrowed computer here, but I think we got everything figured out. Um, thanks for letting us come in today. I know that Larry Rockwell, our director of communications, was going to do this, and Larry was unable to do it. But I am really happy that he asked me to step in, and he's got some great slides in place. So if we can get to them, let's see. I believe
Yep.
that looks. There we go. It's my first success of the day here. Um, I in your introduction, you mentioned my own history as a disability advocate for my daughter, and I did write a book about that experience. And although the book covers her first 7 years, she's not 23 years old, so she has had a long successful journey so far. Actually, she is now working here at the Arc of Northern Virginia, doing working with our Tech for Independent Living team, which represents a huge success for her. Um, and I'm a proud dad, so I won't go on. I could use my whole 45 minutes telling you how proud I am of her for that. Um, but her journey is like the journey of a lot of young people with disabilities, and that she has a lot of success, but she's a little bit like an astronaut. When an astronaut lands on the moon, we're proud of that astronaut, but we also recognize the fact that there are a lot of people that got him there, and that's how it is with my daughter Skylar, and that's how it is for most people who have disabilities but who are working in the community and have found a place in the community. It has been my privilege for the past almost 2 years to work here at the Arc of Northern Virginia. It's been nice for me because it's taken, my heart work as a parent advocate, and has sort of married that to my employment and the thing I go to do every day at work. Um, and working here is not like working at any other place I've ever worked. I mean, I'm surrounded by people who really, really care, people who have a lot of experience with the disability community and with families, with young people, with not so young people. We support families at every stage of life, and it has been fantastic getting to know the people that work here and getting to see the work that they do. So I'm really excited about sharing that with you today. Um, if we look at, I'll go to the slides here. When I talk about at every age and every stage, we talk a lot about, and I think most people, when they think of disability and disability advocacy, they think of children, they think of special education, they think of of that stage of life. And as medical advances have continued to develop, people with disabilities are living long, productive lives, and so the supports that we put in place for people with disabilities um, need to take that into consideration. And I like to think that the ARC is kind of at the forefront of that. Um, one of the things that I love about the ARC at this point is that we do have this. It's almost like a mantra, um, um, a life like yours, where we talk about how people with intellectual disabilities and developmental disabilities deserve to have, have a life with the same level of productivity, same level of independence and autonomy that the rest of us have. And the work that we do is, it's like sending that astronaut to the moon. We want to work as a unit, as support people to make that happen, and give people the opportunity to to live the kind of life that they want to live and that the rest of us have lived. So we have a mission statement, and I'm going to break this mission. We're going to go to this mission statement in two separate parts. The Arc of Northern Virginia promotes and protects the human rights of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Now, what does that mean? Um, Why human rights? We one of the things you'll hear a lot from both from this organization and from other disability advocates is the idea that disability rights are human rights. Um, and I love this quote that Larry found. There's a hell on earth, and in America, there's a special inferno, the institution. For so many years, and thankfully, this is becoming a relic of the past, although sadly not everywhere. The idea of what do we do with people in our community who have disabilities, who have intellectual and developmental disabilities, and for so long, and I think we're all really aware of this. The idea was these are people that need to be separated. These are people that need to be institutionalized. They need to be taken care of, and sort of, I don't know, the analogy maybe for traffic is get them out of the fast lane. Get, you know, their lives are different. Their lives need to be different. Their lives need to be sheltered, and I don't think that necessarily doesn't represent a solution for most people. And the ARC has taken that different approach. So the second part of that mission statement, and actively support their full inclusion and participation in the community throughout their lifetimes. And this isn't a new concept, but it's a concept, and concept of full inclusion that I think is really starting to take hold in our society. The idea that rather than taking people with disabilities and trying to make them fit into certain places in society, that we're looking at the bigger picture, looking at society and how can society make room, make spaces, make productive spaces for everybody. And the mission of the ARC really embraces that. So full inclusion. We talk about inclusion, and this is one of the things that with my daughter, I always this was something that I experienced when she was in school. What does inclusion look like? Is inclusion about, you know, there were special education classes and whatnot where inclusion meant, well, we're going to kind of park her in the corner, and whatever she gets from the class is what she gets. And if she's observing the class, maybe she'll pick up on some of it. The idea of full inclusion, it's not just about, if we see here, it says inclusion is not just about physical proximity, it's about intentionally planning for the success of all individuals. That's a lot of work. That's in a school setting that requires a lot more work from teachers, that requires a sort of larger approach. It involves other students who are learning about disability, and it's not the other, but it's the guy sitting next to them. It's the kid that they play with on the playground. Um, and so when I think about when I was in school. I'm older. I'm certainly. Now I think about when I was in school. I don't know. I don't have memories of students with disabilities in my classes. I just don't. And I'm not, a conspiracy theorist. I don't think that they were hidden away somewhere, but they were separated. They were living they were living different lives and experiencing a different educational experience than I was. And what it meant for me was that I didn't have an understanding. I didn't have the empathy. I didn't have the space in my life and my thinking for what does this look like? And that's something that had to come much later in life. So when we have full inclusion in both in schools and then later in our society, we're not just making spaces for people with disabilities. We're also creating a society that has a better understanding of what that looks like. So full inclusion, we talk about how that benefits people with disabilities, but honestly, I feel like the benefits to the rest of society are just as profound, and it's something that we all benefit from. But it does require a little bit of extra work. Now we talk about the ARC. The ARC as a national organization actually goes back to 1950. When a group of parents from all over the country met in Minneapolis and organized put together this organization with the goal of advocating and supporting people with intellectual disabilities. 12 years later, a chapter was established here in Northern Virginia for for that very purpose. Families that were looking for school services and resources for the kids with disabilities came together and established this particular chapter, and it's been a very strong chapter. It's been very active. Um, we have, and these numbers are astounding to me. There are almost 700 local chapters all over the country of the ARC, and those chapters are very different. They're not all the same. Some chapters, depending on the community, will focus on services, providing services. Chapters like ours focus on advocacy because we are so close. We're so close to DC. We are so close to we're in the realm of Richmond. I mean, we're working very closely with advocate groups. Um, Now, the jurisdiction of this particular chapter includes Arlington, Fairfax counties, Alexandria, Falls Church, Fairfax, but also some of our programs actually extend beyond that. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. Our trust program has a much larger footprint, for example.
Rob, does the name the Ark mean something? Is it an
It's funny. I mean, that's my next slide is going to address that, and it's something that has an awkward history, but I think that one of the things I like about this organization is that they own up to it. They face up to it. You can read all about this on our website, and it's all right there. The name of the ARC originally came from when the organization was first organized. And I apologize, I'm going to throw a word around here that is it's not fun to hear, but it's part of the history. It was originally the National Association for Retarded Children. That evolved into National Association for Retarded Citizens, and then in the 80s, the Association for Retarded Citizens of the United States. About this time, people were, language changes, and we're all aware of it. The older you get, the more you see of this too. You see things that when you were young were, had a certain meaning, had a certain acceptable usage. That as you get older, the way people use language will change the kind of the meaning and the intent of that language. In the late 80s, early 90s, people started to become very aware that the word retardation was moving out of the realm of medical diagnosis and medical identification, and was becoming pejorative. Was becoming, this was a word that people found it was being used to mock people with intellectual disabilities. And so in 1992, the organization decided that we needed to respond to that. The response to that was to completely take away the what that word stood for, and just simply become the ARC of the United States, the ARC of Northern Virginia, etc. So ARC, it's funny because I can sit here and say the word ARC when we talk about our organization's name, that it doesn't actually stand for anything. But in a philosophical sense, if you look at the evolution of that name, it turns out it stands for a great deal. It stands for kind of evolving beyond and what that change can look like. So for now, the ARC is just the ARC, and I used to think of it like Noah's Ark until I looked at the spelling. Was like, okay, well, I'm that's actually not what it is. What the ARC stands for now is just kind of its own thing. But when you look at the history of the name of the organization, you can kind of see where the good intentions of the early years of this organization, they evolved as society evolved, and kind of saw beyond. Oh, we have more here. So yeah, in 2008, House Bill 760 and Senate Bill 620 has actually replaced the term mental retardation in the Virginia State Code with the term intellectual disability. 2010 Rose's Law, when that was signed into law, that took the word retardation out of federal, just federal usage as well. So, and I like this, last line. The only R word that should be used when referring to people with intellectual and developmental disabilities is respect. And and understanding how language works, 20 years from now, will intellectual disability become the next hateful thing that mean kids say on the playground. It's entirely possible, and language changes, and those of us who work with people with intellectual disabilities, we watch for that, and we understand that change happens. Um, so for now, this is where it stands, and I honestly think it's a good position. There are still people, especially in communities that aren't exposed to the national movements and whatever, who probably are still using that word, and you know it's kind of like steering the Titanic. You turn the wheel, and then you wait for the slow incremental change, and that's what's happening here as well. Let's see. So let's talk briefly about what that means, intellectual disability. Um, because we do focus on intellectual disability and developmental disability. There are three criteria for intellectual disability, and these criteria they're not hard and fast. Intellectual quotient, the IQ number between 70 and 75 or below for intellectual functioning, but we're also beginning to recognize that IQ is not necessarily a great measurement for that. Significant limitations in the ability to carry on everyday activities like self-care, communicating, and socializing, adaptive behavior, and I think this is more of a hard and fast rule when this disability originates before the age of 18. And now, if we're looking at developmental disability, here's some examples: Down syndrome, fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, Fragile X syndrome, Prader-Willis syndrome. So these are largely congenital conditions. Now, developmental disability can be a little bit different. General criteria are chronic disabilities, cognitive or physical, or both. For developmental disability, we look for that to appear before the age of 22. These are lifelong conditions. They can be mitigated. They can be through therapy and education. Developmental disability does not necessarily refer to an IQ requirement, and it's an umbrella term that includes some intellectual disability conditions. There's a lot of overlap with intellectual and developmental disability. Examples of a developmental disability would include autism spectrum disorder, which is what most of us are likely to be exposed to, cerebral palsy, epilepsy, Tourette syndrome. So these do not necessarily include intellectual disability, although they can. And like I said, there's a lot of crossover. The impact of intellectual and developmental disability in our community can be profound. We see here that between 2 to 3% of the worldwide population have some form of intellectual or developmental disability, and that's identified. That includes more than 7 million people in the United States, and in our area, more than 39,000 men, women, and children. So, this is a segment of the population that has a significant impact on our communities. If we look at the financial cost, $240,000 to raise a child from birth to age 18. I don't remember spending that much money, but I don't remember having that much money. So there's probably a relation there. The cost of caring for a person with autism can run an estimated $1.4 million over the course of their lifetime. That number astonishes me. And that cost can jump to more than 2.3 million for those with intellectual disabilities. So the financial cost to families and communities is significant, and it warrants some attention. Caregiving families, which one person has a disability, have median incomes that are more than 15% lower than non-caregiving families. And I completely believe that, because I think of how many times that we moved through the course of my daughter's lifetime, just changing communities, chasing good schools, chasing services, and every time you move, you're kind of starting over. So that number makes a lot of sense to me. American businesses can lose as much as 34 billion with a B billion dollars each year due to employees' needs to care for loved ones. So the impact on our communities is significant, and it's something that we all bring to bear. The impact on family life. Let's see, 47% of working caregivers have used up all or most of their savings. Um, I can attest to the fact that I haven't had savings, for years, and because some of this stuff gets very expensive. 23% of family caregivers report their health is fair or poor. 40 to 70% of family caregivers have clinically significant symptoms of depression. Depression is a huge part of this community. And 64% of working parents caring for a child with a disability believe that caregiving responsibility has negatively impacted their work performance. And I can say that before I actually started working in disability advocacy, that was absolutely true. That separation between work life and home life gets really blurry when your home life includes so much advocacy and so much work. Let's talk about meeting that need in Virginia. And these are some numbers that are troubling. And it's one of the things that we work towards. State-funded Medicaid waivers for intellectual and developmental disabilities. 15,000 individuals are currently on a waiting list to receive assistance. 15,000. That number hasn't changed appreciably in years. Sometimes it'll go up a little bit. I think it's actually up slightly now. Sometimes it'll go down a little bit, but that's 15,000 individuals who are on the list to receive assistance. Priority system is established, level 1 to level 3. More than 3,600 people are identified as priority. That's at risk. These are people that need services now, just to function, just to get through life. That wait can last for decades. We're on that list, and we'll be on that list for a while, I'm sure. Virginia ranks 39th in the nation in funding services for people with disabilities. And that's a hard number. That's a hard number to look at. I moved here from Texas. Texas is, in a lot of areas, Texas can be pretty low on the list. I didn't expect to see Virginia down in that kind of area that we are. So there's a lot of work to do. And a lot of that work gets picked up by organizations like the ARC. I want to, as we talk about what those services look like, the ARC of Northern Virginia, and like I said, we're different than other chapters because we're meeting the specific needs of this community. There are 6 areas that we are mainly looking at: information and referral. And we'll talk about all these briefly. Information and referral, advocacy, going down to Richmond and making some noise. Transition points. It's our program for helping families move beyond the high school and graduation, or getting out of the school years. Case management, where we're dealing with individuals and their needs. Special needs trust, doing financial planning for families with special needs, and our tech for independent living, which, like I said, my daughter's working for that team, and I think they're doing some really exciting work. So we'll talk about that here in just a second. Let's see. Where do I even begin? And it's funny, I can think back just last month. I observed the 20-year anniversary of my daughter's diagnosis with her condition. It's a rare brain condition called polymicrogyria. And the thing that I remember at that time, I remember 2 things. I remember feeling like my family was the only family in the world that was dealing with this. I would go to the mall. I would go out, just out into the community, and I would see these happy families. I would see these very typical families. And I just remember at that time, my little 3-year-old daughter, and I remember thinking, that's never going to be us. That's never going to be our life now. We have a different world, and we're all alone in this world. And also, the other thing I felt was that we were powerless. That we had no options, that we had nothing that we could do. What I've learned over the past 20 years, and especially in the past year and a half at the ARC, is that I was absolutely wrong on both those counts. We were not alone, and we were not powerless. But that question, where do I even begin? This is a good entry point for an organization like the ARC. Where do I even begin? Online information and a referral portal. If you go to our website, the www.thearcofnova.org, and we'll see that later. There is so much information on the website. As one of the people that manages that information, I can tell you there's a lot of it. We're building out a new website, and just moving all that information over has been an interesting task. Live chat on social media, online resource library. We have an informational video channel on YouTube, and we also display do displays and information tables at different community events. If I've ever met any of you, it's probably at one of those events. So let's look at this. We also have educational opportunities. Um, Topic specific workshops and online webinars. If you go to our events page, you will see a ton of those, and they're fantastic. Because we have the people that are working here that have they have all this information, they have all this knowledge, and they have all this passion, and they're putting it, they're putting it out there on the internet for everybody. We hold some all day seminars and conferences, and like I said, we have those that YouTube channel. So we have a lot of the conferences and presentations that we've done are still available there. Our transition points. Points stands for providing opportunities, information, networking, and transition support. And you can see we have publications, and if you contact us, we'd love to get copies of these to you. You can see the different publications we have. Starting life with your child with a disability. If I had had my hands on this 20 years ago, I would have been been a lot less full of anxiety for all those years. Getting the most from special education. That's a guide for parents who have students in the schools. Securing a future for your child with a disability. Starting to deal with adult programs for adults with disabilities. Entering the world of work, which is that's a whole other world of advocacy. Finding a home for adults with disabilities, and aging with a disability. So these are these are publications that we have, and we would love to share those. So if you contact us and just say I would love to have the transition points guides, they are absolutely fantastic, and I recommend that as a starting point for just about anybody. Our advocacy group. If any of you have ever met Lucy Beednell, she's our director of advocacy. She is tenacious. She knows everybody. She knows everything about public policy and about right now we're in the middle of our candidate forums for all the candidates for the General Assembly, where they come on to a Zoom meeting and meet members of the general public with questions about disability services and supports, and we hold them to account. We find out what their policy positions are, and we make it clear to them that these are families and this is a community that's watching. And when they come onto these forums and they give their policy statements, they figure out pretty quickly that this isn't the final step. This is the beginning. So this is one of the most important services that we do provide. This idea that we're facilitating conversation with lawmakers, because the funding, like I said, but that those numbers of people that are still waiting for services. I mean, this is where that changes, and we have been able to kind of move the line a little bit here in recent years, despite the fact that fighting for those budget items is, I mean, that's a rough fight. And the key to making that fight work for people with disabilities is to advocate on a face-to-face level. And we do have some events where we actually will load a bus full of advocates, and we all put on our bright orange ARC T-shirts, and we go down and we meet with legislators. And it's like I said, I think it's one of the most valuable services that we provide. And it's a fun trip. You go down and you tell your stories, and those stories are important. As much, and this is something I've always thought as an author and as somebody who's advocating, I can give the slickest presentation. I can write the fanciest articles, but I'm never going to be as effective of an advocate as somebody who has a disability. I'm never going to be able to speak to their needs the way that they can. And so one of the things that we do with our advocacy is we're trying to train people who have disabilities and who have a story to tell. and illustrate how people who have intellectual and developmental disabilities, as long as they've got the support and the resources that we can provide and that our community can provide, they can make quality decisions about their own lives, and they have things to say, and it is very, very important that they be kind of the focal point of our advocacy. Our case management services are providing direct assistance for people in the community with disabilities. Our clients, I can say without a doubt, the people that I work with, these are the hardest working people in the world. They're not just the hardest working people in the building. I've never seen anybody who work as hard for their clients or cares deeply. They coordinate services and medical care. They connect families to those community resources, because a lot of times the resources are out there. It's just a matter of getting people in touch with them. And that's, if we can serve as sort of a hub for that information, then that's a great service that we can provide. And just day to day, in every way, large and small, we are the members of this team are providing creative problem solving. They are going through and looking at individual crises and issues and finding ways to solve it. So this is a team that I respect a lot. They do have contracts for case management with 6 community service boards, and our current caseload is 130 individuals and their families, which that's a lot. That's certainly a lot when you look at the number of people that aren't getting served. And of course, and that's those are services and that we're expanding all the time. Let's see what's next here. The public guardianship program. When I first got here, I met with all the program directors and kind of found out what their jobs were and what I could do to help facilitate. When I met with the director of our public guardianship program, that was the only meeting that I left that meeting with tears in my eyes. To people that are doing they're doing the work of angels. If that's what you believe, they serve a community, the people that since they refer to it as the guardianship of last resort. These are they serve people who are indigent, people who have, I talked about how people with disabilities are growing older. What that means is a lot of people with disabilities are outliving their family members, outliving the people that love them and take care of them, and they have no one else left to serve in a service capacity. We help people that need legal help. We help with guided decision making where they're making their own choices, but we're giving the information and we're helping them out. And that program is currently approved to serve 50 individuals. I'm going to get teary-eyed thinking about the work that they do, because they're helping people who have nobody else, and much of the time they're helping them all the way through to the end. So a lot of what they're doing is sort of end of life care. And I see these people walking in the halls, and I just think, you got to go home feeling like you changed the world today. And it's a profound level of commitment that they do, and it leaves me in awe. Finally, there's our innovation, our Tech for Independent Living team. They are doing this right now. It's a very young team, a very kind of exciting team. They are developing technology that helps people with disabilities, with intellectual and developmental disabilities, actually function either in their day-to-day life, in a work situation, in just access to public services, and things like public transportation, riding the metro. They're taking smart devices like our phones, and they are capitalizing on those capabilities. We have found that individuals with developmental disabilities have an affinity for the kind of technology that they're using, so it's a perfect match. The app that they've developed, and I'll show you this app here in a second, uses visual cues and photos with a touch screen, which is much easier and much more intuitive for people to use. I think that's true for a lot of people. It teaches this community to understand and learn and communicate in some different ways than we've used in the past. And most of all, it supports and builds independence and overcomes functional challenges for people who it's not just that they want to live independent lives. but that they have the capacity to, with just a little bit of help. Again, it's that astronaut getting to the moon, and this team is doing some really amazing work with this. Here's the app, and we just had we just had a release party for the app, the Art to Independence. It's provides fully customizable lessons that will guide individuals through the daily routines of life and the different challenges. Now, each lesson, and this is the team that my daughter's working on, so she's actually helping to develop these lessons. And as somebody with an intellectual disability, she brings that different perspective to it. She works with a team of other people with a variety of different disabilities who are working on this. Each lesson is developed with the individual person in mind. We do have a huge library of lessons, but when somebody comes and joins this program, we will work with them to develop. And let's say you have a specific metro stop that you go to for therapy or for educational things. We can develop the lesson that goes step by step. Get on at Braddock Road Station, take the yellow line wherever, and it will actually, and we can customize those for all different aspects of life. We have that full library: transportation, daily living skills, employment, and safety, which is another really important aspect. In addition to the general catalog, we work with individuals to create custom lessons that suit their life using custom photos, videos, and audio. And I can tell you that they're having a lot of fun putting these lessons together too. And we work with the caregivers, families, teachers, job coaches. It's a very important aspect of this work. And what we're finding is that that there are a lot of people who are really eager to use this technology. Families, professionals, schools, therapy facilities. This can be the thing. This can be the little helper in your pocket that helps these individuals find that independence. And we are supporting this throughout Northern Virginia and Maryland and Washington, D.C. So this is one of those programs that has a little bit broader reach. Now we also have our special needs trust services.
Before you go on, the question about regarding the use of technology, how do you protect clients from cell phone scammers and all the sort of attacks that we're all subjected to daily?
No, that's a fantastic question. This the app that we're developing actually functions separate from the internet. So these so someone who's using this app and using this technology for specific to this app, this is a fully self-contained. It actually gets loaded onto the developed and loaded onto their devices individually. So it's not open. It's these are more like, if you think of it as like a modified PowerPoint presentation. These lessons are loaded into the device itself, so they're not open to the outside. That is a huge concern though, and it's one of those things where I think you're trying to find that balance between, and this is something, again, I keep going back to my daughter, but this is something that it's always been an issue for her, because the connections that they make online with other people with disabilities, those connections are so important, but it does take vigilance to kind of police that. As a father, I have so many fears about that, and I share those concerns. For this technology, though, the fact that it is its own independent, that these are lessons that are loaded that don't require the internet. I think that's an important point, that the fact that it's not open to hackers or whatnot. But in a more general sense, I mean, that is a huge concern, and it's one of those things that the people that are working with our clients, as well as family members, it's something to be aware of, and you strike that balance between the person who has this disability and giving them the autonomy and the independence that they deserve and that they want, while at the same time doing what you can to protect them from the world that's out there, from a world that's not not always very nice, and is a little opportunistic. Um, I think what you've actually touched on is a much bigger issue, and it's one that is, like I said, striking that balance between autonomy and protection is, I mean, that's a that is an ongoing process, and it is I think it's kind of a constant battle for all of us who are in that position. So but for this app, it is sort of, you know, um, it's kind of within its own protective walls. So that's one of the nice things about it. Um, so our special needs trust services, they provide financial planning. It's a tool that, and I won't go into it too much because it is such a huge program, and it's kind of its own life. But the special needs trust is a financial tool that allows people with disabilities to receive financial support that will help their life experiences, and while at the same time not jeopardizing public support programs like Social Security, supplemental income. Um, it also provides long-term planning that doesn't rely on family members or people that are themselves going to grow older and leave the scene. Um, that's I, the general language kind of covers the fear that a lot of us in with disability and with the disability in our families feel, that fear of what happens when I'm gone. The older I get, the more aware I am that I'm, you know, I would love for my plan to be that I will live forever, so I'll always be there for my daughter. My body doesn't seem to be on board with that plan. So all of us who are taking care of family members, um, that future fear is, I mean, that's a very real thing. And the special needs trust services really addresses that, it gives you these options for the future that are based on an organization. The trustee for these trusts is KeyBank. So these are institutions rather than individuals, and that in the long term that can make a huge difference. This is another program, by the way. First of all, the special needs trust program will cover any disability, not just intellectual or developmental disability. And this is a program that covers a much broader jurisdiction than the rest of ours. The Commonwealth of Virginia, State of Maryland, and the District of Columbia all fall within that special needs trust program. So if you are concerned about if you have concerns about financial planning, I would definitely suggest going to our website and scheduling. They will do a free consultation, an hour-long consultation to kind of show you what your options are and kind of see how that works. So the special needs trust program is one of our bigger programs, and they're doing some amazing work. So I hope that and I'm talking a lot. I'm I'm not known for my brevity, and I apologize for that. If you look at what are some ways that you can get involved, first of all, we look where it says speak up, sharing your story. As a communication person, as a writer, I believe so strongly in the power of story and the power of telling the stories of the families that are benefiting from the ARC and are moving forward in their lives, in part because of the work that we do, and the work that we do with them in particular. Sharing those stories, family members, friends, employees who are facing the challenge of intellectual disability, sharing those stories with us, we can get those stories out to people. I love those stories. When people write to me and say, "Hey, can I talk to you about my family?" I just want to get on the phone and say, "Let's block out an hour and just talk about this and write this up," because these stories, every family, every friend, every person that you work with, they all have stories, and those stories teach us everything that we need to know about the disability community. Speaking out, joining our advocacy efforts, hop on the bus with us down to Richmond when we do that. With that once a year, and it's a fantastic. It's a when the General Assembly is in session, we're there too. Speaking to elected representatives, candidates, people who are in the administration. So that's an important aspect. Um, Hosting, inviting the Arc of Northern Virginia to speak at employee meetings, civic organizations, church groups, education institutions. You giving me the space to talk today is a part of that, and I cannot tell you how much we appreciate that. And having the ability to come here and listen to listen to me talk and talk and talk. Um, we have events that you can attend. There are the workshops, the webinars. We have alternating years. We do either our big gala, which is a huge fancy. I rented a tux this year. I hadn't done that in a long time. I need fancier clothes. But that gala event is a huge deal. This year, it's going to be Oktoberfest. It's a Halloween party. It's next week. If you're interested, go to the website and sign up. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're all we're all working on our costumes. And these are chances. We can help us with some fundraising, but also getting the word out and getting to meet the people that we serve, which I think is probably the best thing that we can do with these events. We have events like our dine out with people with disabilities, shop for the cause. In the spring we do our team challenge race. That's a little 5K run/walk. It was more walk for me than run, but that's up at Burke Lake. And volunteering, and this is an area, like I said, I've just taken on the new job of community outreach, and one of the things that I really want to do is grow our volunteer base. Volunteering at our events, volunteering around here at our facility. We have a brand new facility. It's a beautiful, beautiful facility. Um, Volunteer, come out, support us in the office, meet the people that are doing this work, because I guarantee you're going to be impressed. Meet the people that we're doing the work for. Then you'll really be impressed when you meet the either young people or the adults who have disabilities that we're working with, and you're gonna be blown away. I don't think anyone has ever come to one of our events and not walked away with a big lump in their throat and a new appreciation for the work that we do, and it's the work that you can do too. And the fact that you've invited me here to speak is, I mean, that says you're interested, and this is a community you'd like to support. And I I believe in community, and I believe in the role that community can play in helping people. Um, you can support our work. You can make a donation. We are a nonprofit, so we exist. We exist on the kindness and the generosity of our community. Become a member. Ask your employer about matching gifts. That's a huge thing. If you can get an employer to say, I'm gonna pledge $500 this year to help the Arc of Northern Virginia. Can you match that? And an employer, they'll see the value of that. They'll see the value, just the human value, but they'll also see, well, we made that donation, and now our company culture is associated with the work that the Arc is doing. You can donate a used car, a boat, or RV, and you can sponsor an event. If you look at the candidate forums that have going on right now, you'll see how many different organizations are sponsoring those events. And that's a huge boost for us. And like I said, it is an opportunity for you to associate your organization with this kind of work in a meaningful way, in a way that you can feel good about. There are a lot of different ways to connect with us. Probably the best is that website, thearcofnova.org. Go to that website, and everything else is there. You can meet all the people that work here. You'll see all the different programs, the details of that program, the Special Needs Trust Program, which they have their whole other website that because they have so much information. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, or whatever Twitter is called now, LinkedIn, and we have those YouTube videos as well, that YouTube channel. So just do a search for the Arc of Nova, and you can find that. We're out there. We're in the community. We're making our presence known, and I guarantee that if you're watching this, if you're a part of this, somebody who will benefit. And this is the thing that I'm learning kind of the hard way. as we grow older, suddenly we become part of the community that benefits from the kind of work that an organization like the ARC does. So, I've heard disability advocates who refer to, there's two classes of people. There are people with disabilities, and then there are people who don't have disabilities yet. And that's largely true. And so, disability is one of those things that truly, it is truly inclusive. It doesn't matter how rich you are or how you vote or where you live. Disability can be a part of your life, and it doesn't have to be a debilitating part of your life. Some of the stories that we tell and some of the stories that we see are really sad, but they don't have to be. And a lot of them are getting a lot less sad and getting a lot more. You don't want to use the word inspirational, because that's inappropriate, but they are certainly, you know, they're setting a standard for what an inclusive life can look like, and how somebody who has an intellectual developmental disability still can live a life that's just as good and just as meaningful as excuse me, as what the rest of us live as well. So I think that is it for my slides here. But I really appreciate that you give me the time to come in, and I really hope you'll come see us. We have a new facility at it's actually a new place called Venture X. It's one of these shared workspaces, and oh my God, it's such a gorgeous building. I'm in a Zoom room right now, which is kind of strange. So it doesn't look very exciting, but outside, I'm just looking out the little window here at this beautiful facility. It's a facility that is made for community events. It is made for community interaction. So if you have any interest at all, just the address is on the website. Come see us. We would love to have you visit, take you around, introduce you to everybody who's here. And yeah, so that's it. I'm so thankful that you invited us to be here, and I'm glad we had a chance to talk. If anyone has any other questions,
Now, we've
um,
got a quick ones. One of them, somebody made the point that public schools, even with good intentions, can have difficulty teaching unconventional learners. Do you guys have resources that you can bring into schools, or do you advocate for increased budgets for additional teachers' aides or other resources that would be helpful?
oh, absolutely, absolutely. And a good person to talk to is our director of advocacy, Lucy Beednell. But the short answer is absolutely. And one of the things actually that I'm wanting to get started, that I would like to maybe get started here in the next month or so, is a not a support group, but just kind of a forum, a gathering place for families who have kids. We have a lot of supports for people that are transitioning to adult life. Excuse me. I'm actually interested in starting some discussion groups with people who are involved with young people who are in school or school age, or dealing with special education and dealing with the whether it's public education or some other situation, so that we can start to brainstorm at and look at what are some of our solutions. But yes, absolutely, we do a lot of we do work with schools. We do work with the line between special education and general education becomes blurrier all the time, and I like that. You know I can remember teachers who are like, well, that's not really my job. And as we build a more inclusive educational system, suddenly it kind of becomes everybody's job. And I think that's so, as a society where people are supporting each other, and where we really do believe in community and the power of community. I think a part of that goes to the educational system, and how do we create a system where in a general education classroom, there is room for meaningful learning and meaningful interaction with people with disabilities, and that is absolutely something that we try to facilitate. So yeah, and like I said, Lucy Beednell, our director of advocacy, is probably a really good place to start with that.
A last question is do you have a way to work with adults with disabilities who fear and distrust institutions and don't want to accept help because of that?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I talked about our services, our group of people that go out and are dealing with clients individually. A lot of what they're doing, a lot of the work that they're doing is interacting with agencies, is interacting with the institutions and the therapists and the insurance companies. That's a whole I'm sure that's a whole other topic, but they are, part of the work that they're doing, like a huge part of the work that they're doing is interacting and sort of acting as a liaison, because a lot of these are situations, are institutions that have their own rules, have their own processes, and those procedures and processes can be oblique. They can be hard to grasp from the outside, especially if you're a family member, who's already overwhelmed with caregiving and worry and the financial, all the financial questions. That, having somebody who can work as an advocate but also as a liaison, I mean, that's really important, and that's a huge part of what our services team does. So if you go to the website and look under our services team, you'll see those interactions. I don't think you have to. I don't think you even have to have a specific aversion or distrust of these institutions. I think just trying to navigate that system, just no matter what your mindset is. I mean, that can be hugely challenging. I mean, I know that firsthand. So having people who are professionals but are also deeply emotionally committed to that work, I mean, that's a huge service, and it's one of the most important that we provide. So that is absolutely, that's at the core of what our services team actually does.
All right, well, we're a little after 11, and I'll close by saying we're getting a lot of comments in the chat about what a great presentation this was. So you clearly struck a nerve, and people are really glad to learn about this.
Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad. Larry Rockwell, our director of communications, who was I think originally going to speak today, put together this slideshow, and I think it really does a good job of showing. I think it's like anything else. When you really start to have authentic relationships with people with disabilities and kind of see what that community is like, suddenly you understand and you want to be a part of that. So I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to come in and make that case. I think the case kind of makes itself. So,
Thank you so much.
oh, thank you.